In just 10 minutes, uncover the most shocking revelations from Joe Rogan's 3-hour discussion with Ian Carroll. From hidden government secrets to UFO mysteries, media manipulation, and deep state operations, this summary delivers mind-blowing insights you can't afford to miss. Watch till the end. You won't believe what they reveal. Here are 10 key takeaways from the podcast. Takeaway 1, the power of independent media. Ian Carroll talks about how independent media is changing the way people get information. In the past, traditional news outlets controlled most of the news people consumed. They decided what stories were important and how they were told. But with the rise of independent media, individuals now have the power to challenge these narratives and dig deeper into stories that mainstream media ignores. One major reason for this shift is that mainstream media outlets are often influenced by powerful organizations, advertisers, and political groups. This can lead to biased reporting or the suppression of certain stories. Independent media, on the other hand, is often driven by people who want to expose corruption and uncover the truth. For example, Tucker Carlson left Fox News and became even more influential after launching his own independent show. He no longer had to follow corporate rules and could talk about topics that major networks avoided. Meanwhile, journalists like Don Lemon struggled after leaving CNN because they were used to reading scripts instead of doing real investigative work. This shows that independent journalism rewards those who can truly think for themselves. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2, the secret history of the UAP phenomenon. Unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, have been discussed for decades, but recent disclosures suggest they could be far more advanced than most people realize. Governments around the world have been releasing information about mysterious flying objects that defy the laws of physics. Some scientists and researchers believe these objects might not just be from another planet, but from another dimension entirely. One interesting idea discussed in the podcast is that UAPs might be connected to consciousness. Some theories suggest that these objects can appear or disappear based on the observer's perception. This aligns with ancient religious texts that describe mystical beings appearing in flashes of light. For example, the CIA once funded a project called remote viewing, where trained individuals attempted to psychically gather information about distant locations. Some of these sessions reportedly included visions of UAPs and strange beings. This raises the question, are UAPs truly physical objects, or are they something even more mysterious, linked to the human mind itself? Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3, the internet is exposing corruption. The internet has made it harder for governments, corporations, and powerful individuals to hide their actions. In the past, major scandals were often covered up because only a handful of media companies controlled the news. Now, independent researchers and whistleblowers can expose corruption without relying on traditional journalism. Social media, online databases, and leaked documents have revealed many secrets that would have never been exposed before. People now have direct access to financial records, emails, and hidden connections between politicians, corporations, and criminal organizations. For example, the Panama Papers leak exposed how some of the world's richest people were hiding their money in offshore tax havens. Without independent journalists working on this, the public would have never known about the billions of dollars hidden away by elites. This shows how the internet has become a powerful tool for uncovering corruption. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4, the control of global markets. Many people believe they have a lot of choices when it comes to the products they buy. But in reality, most industries are controlled by just a few large corporations. Even when people think they are choosing between different brands, those brands are often owned by the same parent company. For example, in the food industry, PepsiCo owns not just Pepsi, but also brands like Gatorade, Quaker Oats, Tropicana, and Doritos. This means that no matter what you pick in the grocery store, a handful of companies are controlling the majority of what you consume. The same thing happens in the media industry, where only a few companies control most of the TV channels, newspapers, and online news sources. This level of market control makes it easy for big corporations to manipulate prices, control narratives, and push agendas without people realizing it. It also makes it harder for small businesses to compete. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5, the link between intelligence agencies and organized crime. The podcast discusses how intelligence agencies like the CIA have a long history of working with organized crime to achieve political goals. Instead of just gathering intelligence, these agencies have been involved in drug trafficking, election interference, and even assassinations. For example, after World War II, the CIA worked with the Italian mafia to influence elections and prevent Italy from turning communist. In exchange, the mafia was allowed to continue its criminal operations without interference. This type of secret partnership has happened many times throughout history. The CIA has also been linked to drug cartels, using illegal drug sales to fund covert operations in other countries. These types of connections show that the relationship between intelligence agencies and criminal organizations is much deeper than most people realize. We're halfway through the video. Thank you for sticking with us this far. If you're enjoying it, please give us a thumbs up and share it in your WhatsApp groups. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to comment below. To see more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 6. The origins of the opioid crisis. The United States has faced a devastating opioid crisis for the past few decades. While many blame pharmaceutical companies for overprescribing painkillers, there is also a deeper connection between global conflicts and the drug trade. Afghanistan, for example, was one of the largest producers of opium in the world. During the U.S. military's occupation of Afghanistan, opium production skyrocketed, leading to a flood of heroin and opioids into the global market. For example, before the war in Afghanistan, global heroin production was much lower. But during the U.S. occupation, Afghanistan supplied over 90% of the world's opium. This raw material was then used to produce opioids, fueling an addiction crisis in America. Many people now question whether certain wars are really fought for national security, or if they are driven by economic interests tied to industries like pharmaceuticals and drugs. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7. False flags and government cover-ups. Governments have a history of manipulating events to justify new policies or wars. Some major historical events may have been planned or allowed to happen in order to achieve political goals. For example, 9/11 led to the rapid introduction of the Patriot Act, which greatly expanded government surveillance over citizens. Many whistleblowers have since revealed that certain intelligence agencies knew about potential threats before the attack, but those warnings were ignored. Another example is the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was used to justify the U.S. entering the Vietnam War. Later, declassified documents revealed that the official story was not entirely true, and the incident may have been exaggerated to justify military action. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8. The possibility of lost civilizations. There is growing evidence that human civilization may be far older than we think. Many ancient structures, such as the pyramids, underground cities, and massive stone temples, suggest that ancient humans had advanced knowledge that has been lost over time. For example, Göbekli Tepe, an ancient site in Turkey, is over 12,000 years old. This completely changes what historians once believed about early human societies. The site was deliberately buried, raising questions about why ancient civilizations may have hidden their own history. This suggests that advanced civilizations may have existed long before recorded history, possibly even predating the last ice age. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9. The hidden manipulation of social movements. Social movements often start as genuine activism, but are sometimes influenced or even controlled by outside forces. For example, in the 1960s, the anti-war movement was powerful and well-organized. But suddenly, LSD became widely available, shifting the focus from activism to a chaotic hippie lifestyle. Some researchers believe that LSD was introduced intentionally to weaken the movement and make activists seem less credible. This pattern has been seen in other social movements, where powerful groups find ways to either control or discredit activists in order to protect their own interests. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10. The battle between technology and freedom. Technology is shaping the future of human civilization. It has given people access to unlimited information, but it has also introduced new dangers like mass surveillance, AI-driven censorship, and digital control. For example, while Elon Musk promotes free speech on Twitter, AI algorithms are still used to control what people see. Governments and corporations are also exploring ways to track online activity, restrict access to information, and even influence behavior using AI. The battle between technology being used for freedom or control will define the future of society. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like below and share this video in your WhatsApp groups. You can also discuss about this video by commenting below. To get more such videos in your timeline, press the subscribe button below.